And I'm going to kick this. I'm going to kick this right now to Tim Dwyer to kick us off here.
Well, welcome. One more week, or almost one more week done. They all kind of seem like Fridays now, don't they? So we've been kicking around. I guess this week we gave you a couple technical sessions on AC and CAN bus, and we wanted to give your brain a minute to take a breath. And so I think we're at a spot now where maybe enough schools, enough instructors, enough people that are attending this have gotten off of spring break, or have actually had at least a week, possibly more, of trying to handle this distance learning beast. And a lot of what we wanted to, I guess, we wanted to try and find out, take your pulse. And I kind of joked today with Jeff that we're going to check your sanity and see how you're faring, through all of this. There's a lot to take on, whether you wanted to or not. And we've tried to help with some resources. We can't help but notice there's a ton of other stuff popping up all over the internet, free and for pay and whatever, companies that are trying to help navigate through this time, trying to help that transition from what I don't think we as career and technical educators normally do, which is distance learning, to learn how to do that and to manipulate the equipment, or how to engage people, kind of like Joe was asking earlier. So can you share your screen, Jeff, and put
Yes.
that PowerPoint out? We're just going to we've got a few questions, and we just thought it'd be more of a general discussion type of a thing, where we want feedback. I want to probably start. I'm going to have somebody watch the chat here.
I'll watch the chat for you. No problems.
Okay. So what we want to do is ask you. I mean, this is time for you to talk, because we're going to review. We're going to, I guess, get your pulse. Like I said, a little sanity check from where you're at right now. And then we're going to kind of lay out what we want to do next week, and see if this, not so much that it sounds okay to you, but this is kind of how we feel like we need to kind of wrap up some of this stuff that we've been doing, and bring it back to, I don't know, not reality, but just bring it back to where it's going to work a little bit better. So we've been doing this a week at least, if not, we've been doing the webinar 2 or 3 weeks, but I'm assuming there were staggered spring breaks, and so I'm assuming everyone's had to figure this out, or had to deal with it one way or the other. I want to know, again, what's the biggest benefit that you have of being forced to instructing online? And I say benefit because maybe originally it was a negative thing, that you didn't want to do it, you didn't think it was going to work, and there wasn't any other choice, so you were forced to do it. I'm asking now that you've played with it a little bit, or perhaps surf some of the webinars that are out there, et cetera. What's a benefit? Have you found benefits to doing this?
All right. So Joe Hart already said that after setting up his Schoology to reflect both now and what he can use in the future, that they will go to graded assignments sometime after spring break. So it sounds like, learning his LMS a little more. And then Carl Smith said, one of the benefits for him is connecting with other instructors to see what works online. Certainly the collaborative efforts we've seen here and other places.
So the Schoology, Joe, had you been using Schoology before? And I'm not sure if everybody even really knows what it is. I made a mention of it one time, that it's a out of network LMS that looks almost identical to Facebook. It navigates like Facebook and all. It wasn't, I used it when I was teaching at OSU more to track students when they were on internship. It kind of kept them in touch, kind of like Facebook does, so to speak. Didn't take too much to set it up. You have your normal building of classes and dragging of information into and out of, and setting up tests and stuff like that. But
he said he used it in a limited basis, but never fully until, now that he's probably had the time.
Okay.
And Dan Beeson said he's done a deep dive into tools that, quote, I've never had time to before, such as Electude and other things.
Well, I know I have a folder on my phone and on my iPad that said education. I had apps in there that every time I'd hear or see or stumble upon something that I thought might be cool, I'd drag it into my deal, and then and never, most of the time, never got time to actually play with it. So yeah, my hope is that you've got to you've got some time now to actually maybe explore, deep dive some of these things. And I want
interesting concept from Aaron at Skagit. He said he's creating a new online parts and service consultant class. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I could, you can appreciate now the amount of time I think that it takes to put together good materials. And you've got to, what we found, well, that's what we do all the time anyway, is that we have to plan slow to work fast. So, there's several hours of planning, and then we deliver 30 minutes. And it's really quite, it's daunting for people to think of taking that on. But if there is a benefit, are there things now that you have identified that could be a big benefit now that you've been forced to look at this? Now I'm looking at the chat window as well, Tim.
So Bill Adams brings up something that's really interesting, that he says a double-edged sword. It has made instructors become more creative with their delivery methods, but it's also opened a Pandora's box by showing upper management that some of the curriculum can probably be done online, therefore requires less instructor hours in their eyes. Let's be what we wish for.
That's a big concern, Bill. I hear that. I think that you've got to open yourself up to lead in what best practices are, though, because if we don't do that from the grassroots side of things to show and study what is effective for student learning, then somebody else is going to do it for us.
I agree with that. The only problem I have is that because of this, our management is already looking at going more to online stuff and whatnot. So it makes me a little bit concerned because we're going to need less part-time people. Could affect us down the road as far as full-time people, but the more we develop modules and stuff and put them online, the less we're needed. So, I mean, I'm almost 60 years old, but I've always followed technology. I've always embraced it. But I'm a little bit worried about where this is all going to go in the end. Obviously, you can't replace.
We lost him there.
They do this in shops. The OEMs are doing it right now. So what's to stop them from doing a whole apprenticeship through dealerships and stuff like that? Hard to tell.
Well, go ahead, Tim.
Well, I was gonna say, so Bill, one thing that popped into my mind, I'm not trying to be the negative guy, but the question is to instruct online, and Jeff will probably be the one that I'll probably beat him out of saying this, but are they learning online? And I understand, packaging it and being able to do it and finding, your way to navigate it and et cetera is, half the battle. And from an administrator's point of view, perhaps that's, they start looking at it like you were saying, but when the student spits out the other end, have they really learned? And that's, I think, got to be the most important part. So
I fully agree with you, but when it comes down to dollars and cents, where that goes.
Yeah, I know. And that's the part that scares me.
Yeah, scares us all.
Well, so Josh brings up, and a couple others also brought up, Electude. Some have already used it. Some are brand new to it now that it's currently no cost. But Josh said I think the use of programs like Electude has really helped. Our advisory committee has talked about before getting an online LMS. Now that I have my students doing Electude programs, I get good feedback from them, asking what they have learned, and it seems to be a lot more effective than what I've been doing in our textbook. And he might even dump his textbooks in the future. So.
Well, that's a changing landscape for sure. Should we move on? Is there anybody else that has the biggest benefit of being forced to instruct online? And then I want you to think about what I'm going to do next. Is I'm going to ask Jimmy to turn the mics on. And this is a test. We definitely want to hear your voice, and we want to, if you've got a camera, please share it. That always helps. We're trying to model maybe an instructor and student interaction so that you could see the student's face, what they're looking and what they may be texting their buddies about in the side chat. So when we go to the next screen, after we answer this one, we're going to open the mic up. And then I'd ask you to, be time conscious as well.
So people are, I've turned the mute all off. So all you have to do is kick your mic on at any time you want to say something. And likewise, if you have a camera, kick it on as well.
Joe, we're aware that you don't have either, and I know that some of you probably are the same with technology if you don't have a device that has a working microphone or whatnot. So we forgive you. It's okay. I do want to address the first question because to me, it's sort of like I want to step back and just sort of go with the simplest of answers, which is that if we're instructing online, that forces us to use a device with computing power. And any device with computing power can help you automate a lot of what you would do on your daily. And so if you haven't embraced or if you haven't moved from print or paper into online instruction, then you're doing a lot more work on the back end than is possibly required of you, freeing your time for other things.
Yeah, good point, John.
Thank you.
I think there's probably a step backwards to go that forward part, though, because there is some setup to making the transition. But you're right that a lot of that stuff can be managed electronically. So,
well, I'm also Polish by heritage, so I don't really have the intelligence of the rest of the room. I just have to sort of say what's simply out there staring me in the face, which is that if I put all those lessons online, and if I ask a multiple choice question, it's going to gather the data for me. So that's a big chunk of me not having to grade a stack of papers if I give a quiz.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So Jim Booth said something really interesting that, I'll just summarize basically what he said was a lot of the older school mentality has had to change in forcing people to go online and use the tools that are available. There was a lot of reluctancy at first, but he says it's refreshing to see those instructors taking it on and also getting excited about it. So I think that might breathe some new life and new methods into the way we teach. I'm not a teacher, so I can't speak from that mentality, but it seems like that's a very positive thing.
Well, I'm going to move to the second question.
And this might be electively continuing instead of see, now here's the problem with everybody's got their mic on.
Oh, W, I'm going to mute. Somebody will mute your mic.
Yeah, and we kind of did this on purpose because if you're trying to do this with a classroom, you want their interaction, but there's that courtesy thing of not eating a bag of chips and stuff while you got your mic on and whatever.
Which we've all learned the hard way, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I had I have a sign that I hold up in front of the camera that says mute yourself, because there's been meetings we've been in that somebody's just doing something. So real quick, do you see yourself continuing? And this ties in, I want to maybe tie in a little bit to that last question. Voluntarily continuing to use it versus the administration saying, yeah, you're going to start using it more because it works so well. Do you see yourself actually volunteering to continue to use online instructions after you return to campus?
So Joe Hart said, yes, absolutely. The ease of assignment processing is a great benefit to him. Josh Finley said, yes, yes to that question. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be keeping Electude as long as my budget gets approved. He's already using programs like SP2 and Ali.
I'm definitely going to use more of this online to make the students more responsible for doing some of the work. And I see this giving me more time to actually work with the students on hands-on and actually doing them and jumping that bridge or connecting the bridge from just PowerPoints and theories and actually the application. I know a lot of people that are very good with paper, but if you give them a screwdriver, they're liable to kill themselves. So I definitely, and I'll be honest, I was one of the instructors that was kind of saying this is not going to work just because you view things online. Being a brain surgeon, that doesn't mean you're going to operate tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I see this being a combination of both. I'll be honest with you. I had the last webinar you guys did in CAN Bus. I've been playing around with this for a while, but the instructor said something that actually helped me to go back to the class and actually fix something that I had a problem with, and it was the wake-up call. I'm here putting a lap scope on pin 14 and 6 and not seeing the wake-up call. So one of my concerns, and I'll get off my soapbox here, is that this doesn't end, because I'm looking at for this for me, it opened up a new connection with real people that actually are concerned about the industry and want to fix a lot of the stuff for the industry. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, great. I'm glad it helped. Just as much as you guys prepare for your classes, we prepare for these, and it's nice to know that the effort is benefiting people. So very good.
I'd like to continue on once we get back.
Yeah.
At least on some classes. I mean, I don't want to do all of them, but I'd like to maybe even supplement some of the classes that we're doing now with some of the stuff. There's a couple classes I would like to do all online. Yeah, I'd like to continue.
Such as what classes are you taking?
Probably PC skills for automotive. That would be an easy one, of course, since it does involve a lot of computer stuff. So that would maybe an intro class or something. Maybe adapt like the intro class, adopt it into something like a hybrid class. We're about to do so much online, watch stuff there, and then come in and do the hands-on like lift training and things like that.
Excellent.
We always heard from our students that they don't like to read, they don't like lecture, they want to get more hands-on, and we all know we can't just launch them into the shop without some kind of and I always call it first contact with content. I mean, they have to have some preparedness before they come. I see the volunteering of using online instruction as getting them to prepare to go to the shop. They want to go to the shop. If they're not coming in prepared, then we have to lecture, we have to read, we have to do this, we have to do that. The more they prepare out of class, the more time you can spend in class and doing the things that they want to do. But if they're not going to walk in, if they're going to walk in with no pencil and their McMuffin and wonder what's going to happen today, then it's back to square one. And we burned 2 of the 4 hours we had today just getting you up to speed, and you could have come in, a little bit more prepared. So I see the online stuff maybe supplementing and like flipping the classroom where they kind of do the lecture at home and then come to class and you assign homework where you're there to help them with it. And that's where I think the real learning happens. So it's just my 2 cents.
So Josh Finley says we need basic lab scope classes and network classes. Someone else who I don't know what their name is, he asked, can we do one class on flashing? And we got a nice comment from Joe Hart that said, just for the heck of it, he searched CAN Bus on YouTube and found several sleep aids. And the way Mr. Santini introduced it kept it interesting and is exactly how we need to deliver it to students. Thank you for that comment. That's why I do call him the Great Santini, because he does it better than anybody else, in my opinion.
Dave Daniels, I think, would like to add something.
Go for it.
Hi there. Yeah, we're actually proposing to go online here in 2 weeks to try and finish up some courses we had for heavy duty. So we're sort of rushed into this. We have a really interesting mix of instructors. Some of the newer hires had to go through ICP classes and use our Canvas online. Some of the older gray-haired guys, like you said, are more stuck to paper with introducing little video clips and stuff. I've been a pretty good supporter of NACAT, and I see the pool of guys you have here, a lot of them I recognize. It's nice to share our knowledge. The AC class yesterday was really interesting to me. I don't personally teach it, but very interesting. And I think as we keep moving forward, this is definitely the way we're going to go. We have a performance class I'm doing online now. I'm using the Zoom app or whatever, but they're doing their presentations at home and presenting them to the other students. There's a discussion tab. It's gone from hardly any interest for a week or two ago to we had a full sign on the last 2 days, and people are starting to get engaged. So struggles on how to get everybody interested is a bit of a challenge, but I definitely see a benefit.
So then let me ask you, still stay on. Answer the question that's out there. Do you see yourself continuing to use some of those once we all jump back to normal here?
Oh, yes. Well, like I said, our ILM or learning managing system, I guess, is Canvas. I have used bits and pieces of it, the grade book portion. I've put videos on there for the students to use at home and stuff. And some of the quizzes I put on, I'm more reserved on putting full exams on because it seems like they get compromised. But there's ways now I've learned in some of the training to hide them and make sure that you do them in a more controlled environment. But definitely more of the students are interested in this delivery method.
So, that almost brings a part two of this question. How would your students want to continue doing this after they return too? So might be, they're kind of getting broken in, so to speak, the hard way. But when you're back on campus, I bet you a good percentage of them got something from things being delivered ahead of time. I mean, it's the old homework kind of a thing. You tell them to read a chapter they don't want to read. You give them something else to do, perhaps an Al Santini video to watch, and then the next day you come in and start trying to apply that. That's a big deal, I think. So
this is one of the biggest features here where we're going on live. The flipped classroom is really going to work here. Because I'll put a online assignment they have to do the night before, and I can see if they've done it or not.
Yeah.
Almost instantly. So yes, the flipped classroom will look a lot better here than I think it did in just paper format.
Oh, yes. Totally agree.
Well, and then we need to teach based learning too, because it takes it and runs with it. Once you get to the classroom, it gives you a format to back up what you're doing in the flip classroom. They dovetail really nice together. So that could be something, Jeff and I've pretty much held back on trying. I don't want to talk about it on this. It works better when you demonstrate it, and I haven't really figured out how to do that yet. If there's enough interest in it, maybe we do a different webinar one day where we've got some time and we take an hour or two and actually have you as attendees go through and be the students. That's how you best learn how this thing works. And I guarantee if you walk away from it going, that didn't just kick butt, then I don't know what to say. I just really think you'll think, how do I get set up to do it? Is probably going to be more work than the process itself. But we're here to help with that too. So
I'm going to flip to the next question.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
After.
Looks like the last question.
Why am I? Hang on. I've got to get out of this for a second.
Jeff's not used to using PowerPoint. So,
Oh, man.
Oh, that is, yeah.
Yeah, it just hadn't
changed. That's
Not
F5.
mine.
You got to share.
Isn't it?
You got to share.
I
It is now.
am.
Oh.
Do you see a question?
yes. What is
First
the
one.
biggest benefit of you being forced to?
That's
Nope.
the first one.
Back to the other one. I just saw it. It said assess.
There you go. Oh, nope. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the big question now is we can do all we can do, but how do we, like I said earlier, how do we know that they're coming out the other end of the virtual pipeline with any knowledge? So how are we assessing students from what you're doing online? And I want to hear if anybody has a comment. Because I think that's going to be the hard part. I think when it really comes down to it, we have to measure whether online learning or online delivery or virtual distancing or whatever you want to call it is working at all.
But isn't that something? I mean, obviously we partner with Electude, but isn't that something Electude excels at?
They're the way that they track stuff and kind of like JB was saying earlier, you know, the data collection, test grading, things like that. But I'm still kind of down to, does that really mean that they learn? And I'll use the analogy. After high school, I went to an aeronautical school. FAA governed. You had to, every minute that you missed, you made up, and every test that they took, you had to get a good grade on. And we had a test every Friday. I got pretty darn good at taking a test. But if you asked me the following Thursday or Wednesday what that last week's test was, not sure I could. I really got it. I got the test, but I didn't really get the concept. So yeah. I'm not sure that I don't want that to be this thing where you're just cattle herding them through, you know, some online delivery and they're taking a test and doing well on the test, because it's already been brought up a little bit about the integrity of the testing. You know, how do you know they're not all sitting in the same room together, even though we are supposed to not be together? I'm just saying, how do you know that they're not collaborating for test results too and scamming the system? So how do we know that they've learned?
Yeah, Joe Hart even said, I think you're trying to ask you, how do we know what was taught, what was taught was learned, comprehended, and retained? That's exactly what Tim wants to know.
And your advisory committee wants to know that too. They want to know that these guys can have employability skills. So
somebody said they are using Google Classroom. I asked them to tell me 5 things they learned from that week's lesson. That's not a bad suggestion there. Joe Heyer says, I have assigned 5 modules a week and give an average of the modules.
Yeah, I like to, the 5 questions is great. I usually spin those into 3 questions. One of them is, what's the muddiest concept that we covered this week? What didn't you get? That's what it translates into, is I didn't really quite get this. And then the second question is, you know, what worked well for you? What did you learn? And then the third question is, what do you wish that Mr. Curtis did different in the classroom to accommodate your learning? Is there something that I'm doing to hold back your learning? And that's brought out some great discussions. You know, like I don't pick my nose in front of the class or anything anymore. You know, I'm joking, but
he's joking because he still does that.
You're right.
One of the things I was wondering about is, what do you think of an end of unit capstone project, where they have to actually do some research on the things that you've discovered or taught in that term, and then they have to take that and do a little bit of research and submit a project. And you could actually even do a virtual showcase, you know, where they each demonstrate what they've done or what they've learned. So you can make assignments of, you know, what effect does this have on wheel alignment when you change tire and wheel size, those types of things.
Kind of like the old science fair projects we used to have to do.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great way for the student to demonstrate a bit of their learning anyway. And yeah, we're all learning how to present it as well. Joe, I see your comment that your district has told us to back off the assignments. So many parents were complaining. I get that, but the assignments that you do make need to be crisp, short, sweet, easy to assess, break it down into the simplest possible topic, so that And I know that you'd like to cover more, but covering is maybe not learning.
All right, so it's technically 2:30, so I'm going to stop the recording, but we're not going to stop the discussion or the momentum that we've got here. So I'm just going to stop the recording.
So I want to